Welcome, everybody. My name is Randi Shannon, naturopathic doctor here in Miami, Florida, and we are in for a treat today, literally, Truth Treatments. I mean, we have pharmacist Ben Fuchs on with us. He is a host of his own radio show, Brightside Ben, and he is so knowledgeable. Just get ready. Take your pens out, get your paper out, and take some notes, because he has formulated something that is so amazing. And let me tell you, most of you that know me know that I come from such a natural path about everything. 50 years old, don't color my hair, put nothing on my skin, and have maintained an incredible youthful appearance. And there's magic into not putting things on your skin. But I have finally met the one person that has created something that I'm actually willing to put on my skin. So welcome to our show, Benjamin Fuchs, one of my most favorite people on the planet.
Thank you so much, Randy. That means a lot to me, and I hope I can live up to that incredible billing. That's really, really cool stuff. I'm very grateful. I hope I don't disappoint anybody.
You will not, because, when I'm asking you questions today and I'm picking your brain, these are the same things that people are going to want to know. And, you really are making a difference in the world, and you're making such a difference you are. So let's just jump into it. So tell me where you've been. Let's kind of take a minute or two and find out who pharmacist Ben Fuchs is.
Okay, so, I'm a pharmacist. For one, obviously, I went to pharmacy school at CU, University of Colorado in Boulder, and one day I was walking through the basement of the School of Pharmacy, and I smelled, as a freshman, a 23-year-old kid, I was walking through the basement, I smelled this pepperminty smell coming out of one of the rooms, and I walked into this room, and it was a big laboratory, and there was a little old man tinkering around some beakers in the laboratory. I started chatting with him, and we hit it off really well. And at the end of about 20 or 25 minutes of talking to this guy, he asked me if I wanted to be his research assistant. And I was looked around this laboratory, and I was like completely blown away. I was always a chemistry geek, and I was a little disappointed in pharmacy school. We learned about drugs, and we were learning about names of drugs and legal and regulatory kinds of things, but we weren't really doing anything with laboratory stuff. And when this gentleman, Dr. Tony Jones, asked me if I wanted to be his research assistant, I was all over it. I was like, yes, I want to be your research assistant. And it turns out that Dr. Jones, many years ago, this was 1983 when I was in his laboratory, and many years before, in the 1930s, Dr. Jones invented Blistex, the lip medicine Blistex, which I'm sure you've heard of.
Oh, wow.
And
everyone.
Right. Yeah. And this laboratory in the basement of the School of Pharmacy in Boulder, Colorado, that I had walked into with the pepperminty smell was the Blistex Research Lab. And it's where all the Blistex products were developed. And when Dr. Jones asked me to be his research assistant, he wanted me to help him develop Blistex. And so for the next 4 years, while my colleagues were off getting their internship hours in drugstores, I was getting my internship hours in the Blistex lab, learning how you make products, learning about ingredients, learning about the lips, learning about the skin, learning about animal testing, learning about research, learning about everything you could possibly want to know about how you create skincare products. One of my jobs anyway, was literally to make Dr. Jones's products. I'd come in after school, and there'd be a stack of formulas, and I was tasked with making his formulas, testing his formulas, seeing how his formulas worked, and storing his formulas, and monitoring his formulas, et cetera. And I got this incredible soup to nuts background in how you create skincare products that actually do things for the skin. Dr. Jones was, in addition to being an inventor, he was a medicinal chemist, and he was a pharmacist, and he taught me this idea that you could create changes in the skin using topical strategies. You could actually manipulate tissue topically. And so when I graduated pharmacy school, I had not only a background in pharmacy, but I also had a background in the production, the formulation, and the manufacture of skincare products. And so I very soon after I graduated got into doing something called compounding. And I don't know if you've ever heard that word. Today it's pretty common that you have these things called compounding pharmacies and compounding pharmacists. And these are places where the pharmacy or the pharmacist doesn't only put the pills in the bottle like a traditional pharmacy, he actually makes the medicine. So a compounding pharmacist will make hormone pills, or they'll make special nutritional pills, etc. Well, I started to get involved with with compounding prescription topical products in the pharmacy. And I started doing this I was working for Kmart at the time, Kmart Pharmacy at the time. And I started doing it for Kmart Pharmacy. People would come in for specific skincare problems, and I started compounding skincare formulations for their particular needs, for their eczema or their acne or their hyperpigmentation or whatever, their burns, whatever their problems were. And because of my background as a pharmacist, my background with Dr. Jones, I was pretty good at it. I started making products that were very effective, and pretty soon doctors were calling my pharmacy up, calling Kmart Pharmacy up for requesting for the pharmacist who was making the products, the skincare products, and they would tell me about their specific patients, and I create formulas for them, and pretty soon I had this big book of formulations that worked for specific ailments for specific patients, and people would have their own personal creams and personal topical preparations that I was making for them. I did this for Kmart for about 6 or 7 months, and finally it dawned on me, why am I doing this for Kmart? I should just be making my own. I should start my own business, which is exactly what I did. I started a business, a compounding pharmacy that was specifically dedicated to the skin. It was the only skincare pharmacy where all we did was skincare probably in the world. And when the State Board of Pharmacy came to inspect my pharmacy, there were no drugs in my pharmacy. It was all skincare, and it was also nutrition because I had gotten involved with nutrition as well. So I had a pharmacy that was dedicated to taking care of the skin by using nutritional supplements and using topical products that I created for them, right, that I created for individual patients. And as those products worked for individual patients, I got the brilliant idea, hey, why am I doing it for these individual patients? I might as well just go out and sell them to everybody. They work. I know they work because people are coming back and buying them, and their eczema is going away, and their dry skin is disappearing. So I went to Kinko's, and I printed up little address labels and filled up the bottles and got Scotch tape and stuck them on the bottles, and it looked really ridiculous. The labels were all crooked, and the Scotch tape, you could see the little razor marks from the Scotch tape. And I drove around in my little Audi and knocked on doors, and I started a business from the ground up, and it took off. And because the products were extremely effective, and even though they looked pretty ugly, the products worked. And I started off small, but it ended up being a pretty big business. I sold the business a couple of years ago, and I started another business, and that's The Truth, which is actually the culmination of everything I've learned in the last 32 years, literally since 1983, of formulating skincare products. And over the last 32 years, what I've done is accumulate a wide body of information and knowledge about what you need to do to get the skin beautiful. And it is all based on the idea that when you create health changes in the skin, you beautify the skin. When you make the skin healthy, it becomes more beautiful. When you make the skin healthy, it moisturizes itself. When you make the skin healthy, hyperpigmentation goes away. When you make the skin healthy, blemishes and pimples disappear. When you make the skin healthy, psoriasis and eczema go away. It's all about creating health changes in the skin. We give lip service to the idea that the skin is the body's largest. You help me here, Randy. The skin is the body's largest
organ.
Exactly.
Yes.
We say this all the time. And even lay people know this phrase, but we don't treat the skin as if it were an organ. And in a nutshell, that is the reason why almost everybody universally is not satisfied with their skincare products. Just to give you a simple little example. In the United States, people buy maybe $200 million a year of moisturizing creams. Everybody has got moisturizers in their cars, moisturizers in their medicine cabinets, and moisturizers in their purse, and moisturizers in their locker, moisturizers at work. And people sometimes have a dozen different moisturizers, and they're always trying different moisturizing creams. And you would think with all this money spent on moisturizers and all these moisturizers that everybody's using and everybody has, that we would never have a problem with dry skin, right? Well, clearly that's not the case. Everybody has dry skin despite the fact that we're obsessed with moisturizers. So obviously we're doing something wrong. And the same is, you can make the same thing, the same claim for acne or for eczema or for psoriasis or for wrinkles or for hyperpigmentation or for rosacea. There is just this sense of dissatisfaction with the world of skincare. Skincare products don't work. And the reason they don't work is because by and large, for the most part, the vast majority of skincare products do not address the locus of breakdown in the tissue that is responsible for the way the skin shows up. The manifestation of the problem begins in an area in the skin where nobody is addressing. What you see on the skin's surface is the end result of what has happened deep down in the lower levels of the skin. In fact, the blemish, the pimple, the eczema, the rash, the dry skin is the end result of biochemical dysfunction that has taken weeks to show up. And this is why dermatology is the most failed and useless of all the medical specialties. If you go to a dermatologist today, Randi, you will get the exact same medicine that you got in 1960. Dermatology has not changed, has not advanced, and there's nothing a dermatologist can do for a skincare problem any more than there's anything you could do for a skincare problem by using most topical products, because the dermatologist or the over-the-counter skincare product is only addressing the end result of biochemical processes that have been percolating underneath the skin for weeks or months. And this is responsible for the failure of skincare. So what you're seeing when you have dry skin, to use one example, or pimples or rashes or whatever it is that you're treating, is really the way the body has resolved the biochemical breakdown that is occurring underneath. It's the end result. It's the excrement. The pimple is the way the body has eliminated or resolved the problem. It's not the problem. It represents the elimination of the problem. We are treating the elimination of the problem and expecting the problem to go away. It's like if you had a GI or a digestive problem and you went to the GI doctor, the gastrointestinal doctor, and he gave you some medicine. He said, Randi, I'm going to take care of your intestinal problem. I want you to take this medicine and I want you to put it on the turd in the toilet bowl, and that'll take care of your intestinal problem. You say, what? That's ridiculous. I have an intestinal problem. You want me to take care of the excrement? Yeah, I want you to take care of the excrement. That's going to take care of your intestinal problem. You think that's ridiculous, right? It sounds stupid. But that's how we treat the skin. That's how we treat the skin. We treat the excrement. We treat the elimination. We treat the resolution. We don't treat the problem. You follow me?
Completely. I love it.
So what I discovered is we got to figure out what the problem is, and we got to treat the problem. And so what I did with Truth Treatments and what I did with my other company and with my nutritional strategies is we address the cause of the problem, whether the problem is blemishes or rashes or dry skin or aging skin, whatever the problem is, there is a cause that is located deep down in the skin and ultimately in the blood and in the internal milieu of the body. And that's how you have to treat the body or the skin if you want to eliminate your health problem. You have to treat the level of the skin where the cells are growing, which is in the lower epidermis. I'll tell you what this means here in a moment, and in the dermis, and you have to treat the blood through the digestive system. So first and foremost, we got to talk about the skin. It never ceases to amaze me how most of us can use skincare products and not have any idea about what our skin is. Of course we're going to be suckers. Of course we're going to be taken advantage of. Of course we're going to be gullible for the latest celebrity or the latest fad or the latest song and dance that somebody is presenting to us about their product, because we don't know what the skin is. If we don't know what the skin is, how are we going to know what a skincare problem is? And if we don't know what our skincare problem really is, how are we going to address it? So first and foremost, we have to talk about what the skin is. So you look at your skin, Randi, you look at your arm, right? You hold your arm up and look at it, and you look at your skin. What the heck is this thing called skin? I mean, I've been studying skin for a long time, so I kind of have an idea of what it is, but I often wonder, what does the layperson think, the average person, the woman who's using skincare products, what do you think when you see the skin? Does it look like an organ to you? I mean, try to zoom in. It doesn't look like much like an organ, does it? I mean, what do you see, Randi? When you look at your skin, what do you really see? Can you describe it? I mean, you just see color, some kind of covering, right? Yeah, some kind of covering. But you see, it's not just a covering. It is an organ, and we say it all the time, but there's a disconnect between what we say, the words that we're saying, and what it really is. We say it's an organ, but we don't really think of it like an organ. We say the skin's the body's largest organ, but it doesn't really hit home that this is an organ, every bit as much an organ as your heart, or your spleen or your pancreas or your liver or any other system in the body. I mean, when we think of an organ, we think of something throbbing and gooey and dynamic and globby. We don't think of the skin that way. The skin doesn't look anything like that. But in order to understand how to treat the skin, in order to understand why the skin breaks down and why we have these problems, we've got to start to look at it like it's an organ. We have to use our X-ray vision, and we've got to zoom into the nature of the skin. And that's what I'm going to help you do that right now, okay? So the skin's got three main layers. So it's got a lot of layers, but it's got three main layers. It's got a surface layer. It's got a layer underneath that surface layer, and then it's got a layer, a deeper layer that's underneath that. So you've got the surface layer, which is made up of dead cells, hard cells, almost like you have a fingernail coating, a very thin coating of fingernail on top of your skin. This is called, acts as a barrier, and it's called technically your stratum corneum. You may have heard that term. And you can think of the stratum corneum as this hard layer that's like a rhino horn or like a deer antler or like a fingernail. So you can just imagine that there's a very thin layer of fingernail on the top surface of the skin. That's called the stratum corneum, and that's the uppermost layer. It's about as thick as 1/10 of a piece of notebook paper. And then underneath that stratum corneum, you have another layer that is itself made up of sublayers, and this other layer is called the epidermis, and it is also made up of somewhat dead cells. The stratum corneum is made up of dead cells, and the top of the epidermis is made up of dead cells. But as you go lower into the epidermis, you get two layers of living cells. So the living cells are located relatively deep underneath the skin surface. The two layers of living cells are called the basal layer and the squamous layer, and you may have heard of those terms. You may have heard those terms in terms of cancer. This is where you get cancer. Yes, exactly. You get squamous cell cancer and you get basal cell cancer, right? So the cancer doesn't appear in the stratum corneum. Nobody has stratum corneum cancer. Nobody has epidermal cancer. Cancer only appears in the lower levels, the basal layer and the squamous layer. Now, why is this important? It's extremely important because if you want to have healthy, beautiful skin, you have to be at the level of the living cells. You cannot create changes in the skin by working at the upper layers because those layers are dead. It's done. It's finito. There's nothing you could do to change the condition of your skin at the stratum corneum or at the level of the upper epidermis. This is where most skincare products work. They work at the level of the stratum corneum and the upper epidermis, which are dead. And this, in a nutshell, is why the vast majority of skincare products are a waste of money and useless when it comes to creating changes in the skin. That's so huge. This is why skincare products don't work, and this is why people are not satisfied with their skincare, is because they're addressing their dead cells. They're not addressing the living cells at the squamous layer and the basal layer. Now, so far we've only covered the stratum corneum and the epidermis. I said the stratum corneum is about as thick as 1/10 of a piece of notebook paper. The epidermis is about as thick as a piece of notebook paper. So at the level of the stratum corneum and the epidermis, you're dealing with a little bit more than one piece of notebook paper. That's pretty darn thin, Randy.
It is.
That's hardly anything, right? The bulk of the skin, which is about 10 pieces of notebook paper, is located underneath the squamous layer and the basal layer, and that's called your dermis. Now, the dermis is the sine qua non, the very essence of skincare. This is where you need to be if you want to make changes in your skin. The lower epidermis is important too because that's where you develop your barrier from, and so that's important. But the real essence of skincare, the real essence of anti-aging skincare is located in this dermis area. And what makes the dermis different from the epidermis and the stratum corneum is not only the fact that the dermis is alive, but the dermis is actually composed of a different substance than the epidermis and the dermis. The epidermis and the dermis is made up of a type of tissue called epithelial tissue. I don't know if you've heard of that term. Epithelial tissue is a covering tissue. Epithelia is found wherever the body needs to cover something. So inside the body, the epithelia is found in certain organs. It's found inside your blood vessels, a type of epithelia, inside your digestive system. So whenever the body needs to protect something, it uses epithelia. But the bulk of the body and the bulk of the skin is made up of a completely different kind of tissue. It's called connective tissue. I know you heard that term. Most people have heard the term connective tissue because connective tissue is so darn important for health. In fact, most of the signs of aging of the body that we hate, including the stooped over appearance that people have when they get older, or the weak bones that people have when they get older, the ruptures and the hernias and the prolapses that people get when they're older, the broken down blood vessels that people get when they're older, all of these are signs of connective tissue deterioration. Arthritis is the classic example of connective tissue deterioration. When the connective tissue deteriorates, the body shrivels. The body becomes weak. And this is what we hate about aging. Well, guess what? The dermis is also connective tissue. This layer underneath the epithelia, this layer underneath the dead cells on the surface and the epidermis underneath that is connective tissue. So the way to eliminate wrinkles and fine lines and to keep the skin moist and hydrated and thick and bouncy and resilient, all the things we love about youthful, healthy skin are connective tissue issues. Wrinkles are arthritis of the skin. Aging of the skin is osteoporosis of the skin. It's a hernia of the skin. It's a rupture or a prolapse, or it's all the same kind of thing. So in order to make the skin, to anti-age the skin topically, we got to figure out how do you build connective tissue. In other words, taking care of your skin becomes a connective tissue issue, not a skin issue. If you focus on it as a skin issue, you're going to miss the very essence of building tissue, which is driving the production of connective tissue. Now, most of us, there's one protein that's really, really significant when it comes to building connective tissue, and that's a protein called collagen. I know you've heard that term, right? Collagen.
Yes, that's the rage.
It's huge, right? It's huge. And so driving the production of collagen is the main protein in connective tissue, is the key to keeping your skin young and beautiful and healthy. And you cannot build connective tissue. You cannot stimulate the production of collagen unless you're in the dermis. Most skincare products work at the stratum cornea. Occasionally, they'll work in the epidermis, but the vast majority of skincare products don't go near the dermis. So let's talk a little bit about the dermis and what that's really about. The dermis, like the rest of the body, is made up of cells and stuff. The cells make the stuff. This is how the body works. The cells make the stuff. Now, it turns out that the stuff feeds the cells, but the entire body is made up of cells and stuff. You can think of the body like being like raisin bread. So when you have raisin bread, you got two major components, right? What are the two major components of raisin bread? You got raisins and bread, right? Body's the same way, except that we call the raisins in the body the cells, and we call the bread in the body the stuff. So the cells and stuff that make the body are akin to the raisins and the bread that make up raisin bread. Why is this important? Well, if you are aging, your bread is deteriorating. Do you get this? The signs of aging are deteriorating bread. It's deteriorating stuff. So the way to prevent or to replace the deteriorating stuff is to turn on the raisins, because the stuff is being made from the raisins. The bread comes from the raisins. Like you have magical raisins. Your cells are magical raisins. Imagine if I gave you some raisins and said, here, Randy, these are magical raisins. They're going to make their own raisin bread. You'd be like, what? That's incredible. And I put these raisins in your hand, and you watch the raisins start to extrude flour and all the stuff that makes up bread. And a minute later, or an hour later, or 2 days later, your raisins have now become raisin bread. You say, that's a miracle, right? Well, that's exactly how the body works, except we call the raisin cells, and we call the bread stuff, or tissue, technically, if you want really, or extracellular matrix is the technical term for it. The point being that if aging is the result of deteriorating bread or deteriorating stuff, and the bread is made from the raisins or the stuff is made from the cells, Where do you think you need to be working if you want to make more bread or make more stuff or make more tissue? Where do you need to be working? You need to be working at the raisins. You need to be working on the cells. And this is how you stay healthy, not just on the skin, but everywhere in the body. Randy, all disease is cell disease. All disease is a defect at the level of the cell, not the stuff. But we treat the stuff, not the cell. Huge. Yes, it's so huge. We're treating the stuff and not the cells. We hate the stuff because it's weak, it's deteriorating, it's breaking, and we do everything we can do to treat the stuff but not the cells. And do you know why we don't treat the cells? Because there's nothing we can do to treat the cells. The cells only need three things. And I'm talking now internally as well as on the skin. The cells only need three things. They need food, they need oxygen, and they need a clean place to do their business. That's it. Food, oxygen, and a clean place to do their business. That's all a cell needs. And if a cell is sick, it's not getting simply three things. It's starving, it's suffocating, or it's toxic. Those are the only three things that go wrong in a cell, or that can cause something to go wrong in a cell: starvation, suffocation, and toxification. And I'm talking if you have cancer, I'm talking if you have autoimmune disease, I'm talking if you have fatty liver disease, I'm talking if you have osteoporosis, I'm talking if you have any of the 12,800 different diagnoses that there are. They all involve cells that are starving, suffocating, or toxic. And there is nothing in the doctor's magic bag of tricks that can address any of those three issues. There's nothing in the doctor's magic bag of tricks that can feed a cell. There's nothing in a doctor's magical bag of tricks that can oxygenate a cell. And there's nothing in a doctor's magical bag of tricks that can detoxify a cell. But it doesn't matter. Isn't that cool? But it doesn't matter because, Randy, we can do that ourselves. From a topical perspective, you have to drive in vitamins into the skin if you want to have beautiful skin. And that's what I discovered at Blistex. That's what I discovered in my compounding pharmacy. And that's what I'm leveraging with my Truth Skin Health products, is you have to figure out a way to get vitamins into the skin through the stratum corneum, through the epidermis, into the dermis, into the cells that are making the connective tissue. The two major vitamins are vitamin C and vitamin A. They have to be in high enough quantities, and they have to be in the right form. With vitamin C, you have to have fatty vitamin C, not ascorbic acid, which is the cheapo vitamin C that's found in almost all skincare products. You have to have a very expensive, deluxe, premium, fatty form of vitamin C. I use one called Tetra C. You have to have it in high concentrations. With vitamin A, you have to have it in the retinol form, and you have to have it in high concentrations. The net effect when you use high concentrations of vitamin C and vitamin A, they're like you'll find in our Truth products, is you will get not only instant beautification results, and by instant I mean within a day or two, but you will get healing results, and that is the mark of an effective anti-aging product. If you can put your anti-aging product on a burn, and it will accelerate the healing of the burn, or a cut, or a scrape, or a shaving abrasion, whatever, and it heals the skin, that's your mark of an effective anti-aging product, and that's how you can tell that our Truth treatment products will work for anti-aging. If you put them on a cut or a scrape, you'll notice that the cut or the scrape is healing because you're driving the production of connective tissue, which is the very essence of healing and ultimately the very essence of beauty.
Wow, incredible. If you want Pharmacist Ben's products, which I use, they are the only ones that I ever have been willing to put on my skin. Years and years ago, when I was in my 20s, I'd use a lotion here or there, and I never got any effect except drier skin. You can find his products at truthtreatments.com, and if you want 10% off, mention
TruthRS.
Perfect, and that will get you 10% off of the products.
Let me just say something real quick. All our products are made without water, without fillers, without wax, without emulsifiers, without preservatives. You only use 1 or 2 drops of our Truth Serum. You use very tiny amounts of all our other balms and gels. And the effects that you will get with these tiny amounts will blow you away. Massage the product in really well. You'll start to notice results within 1 or 2 doses. Within a week, people will be asking you what you're doing for your skin. And by the way, The surest way to guarantee that you will have dry skin for the rest of your life is to use a moisturizer, because most moisturizers suppress the production of moisture factors, and this is why people get addicted to their moisturizers and are so dissatisfied with their moisturizing products. But that's for another day. We'll have to talk about that some other time.
We have to bring it back, and we are going to have you back. These are 100% active and functional ingredients, you guys. Make sure you go to truthtreatments.com and mention TruthRS, short for Randi Shannon. So TruthRS, you'll receive 10% off. Thank you so much, Ben. This was incredible information, and we will have you back. Next show up, we're going to be talking about CBD oil. Talk to you soon.